All right. Hello and welcome to today's episode where we're going to talk about some mental compulsions or mental safety behaviors. And specifically, I want to talk about figuring your anxiety out or your theme out or trying to figure whatever it is you're trying to figure out and how that by its very nature is actually the safety behavior that's keeping you stuck in the loop. So, before we dive into the show, real quick, my name is Matt Codde. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds. And if you're looking for help on your journey to recovery, I have some great links in the notes, or you can head over to restoredminds.com. We have some great resources to get you started. Also, if you are benefiting from the show and enjoy this content, please help us out by liking, subscribing, and sharing a nice review on iTunes and Spotify. So let's go ahead and dive in. So we understand as a generic idea this idea of the stress and anxiety loop, right? And it's these four components that all tie together. You have these, fearful oriented thoughts. You have this emotional energy or these sensations in the body that we often call anxiety, fear, stress, right? And so you feel this energy in the body, and then you do some type of behavior, mental or physical, that then neutralizes these feelings or the thoughts, creating relief, which forms the cycle, and the cycle just loops, right? And the problem with the fear loop or the stress and anxiety loop is that it becomes self-perpetuating. More fear creates more thoughts creates more fear, more behaviors, and it just builds and builds and builds. And what happens is as this loop builds, it ultimately takes over your life and creates disorder in your life. See, it's not the presence of the thoughts or feelings that is the disorder, it's the loop itself that creates disorder. So important that we distinct that. And then so specifically, we want to talk about, okay, what are the mental behaviors that people engage in, and really shine light on those, because this is probably 80 to 90% of most people's compulsions. Is just these little things they do in their mind to escape, avoid, neutralize, remove the thoughts or the feelings. And oftentimes it's so unconscious that trying to tell someone to stop doing a mental safety behavior or a mental compulsion is not an effective approach, because the person's usually not even aware that they're doing it. And so today I think I'm going to actually start a series where we're going to talk about a lot of different ones. But today I want to talk about this idea of trying to figure it out. So you may think that logic and reason is a natural thing to bring to fear. But the problem is fear bypasses your ability to be logical and reasonable, right? To really access that part of your brain. And, we saw this during the, COVID-19 pandemic, where we saw the masses of people buying toilet paper, right? Like just buying up, hundreds and hundreds of rolls of toilet paper. There's nothing logical or reasonable about that, right? Like you see how irrational people operate when they are overrun by fear, and they will tell you though that they're being rational and reasonable, right? And that's the conundrum is that a lot of times we're not even aware of the state we're really in and what we're actually doing, and we convince ourselves that it's the right thing. So when we go into our mind and trying to rationalize and reason and figure out our fear, a lot of times what we're actually doing is just running from the feeling itself. In fact, I would say almost all the time, that's exactly what we're doing. We feel the feeling, and in order to escape the feeling, we go into the mind, instead of actually just learning how to confront the feeling as a whole right where it is. And this is the issue, is that we convince ourselves that we're being rational or reasonable, or we're figuring out through logic, and all we're really doing is perpetuating it. So, let's say you have a certain theme that you're trying to figure out, or you're trying to figure out why you're feeling a certain way, and you think that by thinking about it, it's going to resolve the feeling, when really what you're doing is escaping the feeling to be in the mind, so that you're not having to really confront and feel it. Because ultimately, the reason we go to figure something out and run into the mind and rationalize, ruminate, all that stuff, is because we're either consciously or unconsciously afraid of the feeling itself. We think that if we feel the feeling, something bad's going to happen, or that it's going to be too much for us to handle, or that it's going to last forever. And because we fear the feeling, we run into the mind to avoid it, to escape it, and then we tell ourselves that we're being rational about it by thinking about it. And that's the self-deception that occurs there. And really it's just an escapism from the feeling itself. And this is why when you do that, you validate that the feeling is dangerous. And this is how the stress and anxiety loop works. You validate that feeling this emotion is dangerous, thereby creating the loop to create more thoughts, more feelings, and then you spend more time in your head trying to figure it out. And that's what creates this loop that then spirals and spirals and spirals till all of a sudden you're spending 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours in your mind trying to figure something out, convincing yourself that you're doing this stuff to try to help yourself, but really you're unconsciously or naively making the problem worse. And it's so important. Like, this is such a nuanced detail that most people really don't get this. Is they really think that if I talk about this, if I analyze it, if I think about it, if I figure it out, that the feeling will go away. And this is where you have to be honest with yourself, is like, well, what are you trying to figure out, and what do you think that will actually do for you? You think that by getting to some certain answer in here that it's going to resolve the feeling. And that right there is an indication that that's really what you're after. You're trying to resolve the feeling, which means you're escaping it to begin with. Because it's not some piece of information is going to resolve something external. You think it's going to resolve something internal. And that is really what we want to become more conscious of, is what do I actually believe this is going to resolve? And it's generally this feeling that you don't want to feel, or that you're running from or trying to escape from. So that idea of mental convulsions and mental safety behaviors, specifically this idea of figuring it out, is so important that you understand that figuring it out is itself a safety behavior, because it's validating that the feeling itself is dangerous, and or the projection of the feeling, which is the theme that you're trying to figure out, is actually dangerous. And you're giving it that energy and attention that's actually perpetuating the stress and anxiety loop. So hope that makes sense, and I hope you see how that may apply to your life, especially if you're one that engages in mental safety behaviors like trying to figure it out. And then when you see that, the key is to now start to really focus on breaking the loop as a whole. And that's where, again, if you haven't downloaded, we just released a new free guide. So you can check that out. We have our weekly newsletter that we send out for free, as well as our live events that we run every month. So please make sure to register for those and sign up for those, because those are great ways to get started. You also can access the book From Stuck to Unstuck in the links below, or at restoredminds.com. So thank you so much. I hope this was helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Hey there, thanks so much for watching that episode. If you found it helpful, we have some links to some other episodes that we think you might like as well. And if you're looking for help on your journey to recovery from fear, stress, and anxiety, either check out the links in the notes or head over to restoredminds.com. Thank you, and talk to you soon.